Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Once Upon a Crescent, a Muslim kids podcast. It's been so long since we've come together for a new episode. I have been away from my podcast far too long. It's been a busy few months, but I'm so glad to be back. Alhamdulillah. Let's get back to the way we do things on this podcast, imagining the story. Let's see if I remember how to start this thing. Oh yes, that's how we do it.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Today's episode is called Safa's 100th Day of School. Safa's school had an amazing program prepared for all students today. Students in her grade level were going to recite a 100-word poem about friendship for a special video that would be uploaded to the school's website. Safa was excited to say her part since her class has been practicing reciting this poem for 2 weeks. Safa looked around in her room for her 100th day t-shirt that her and Mama made together. This t-shirt was white with pink gems glued all over it. Exactly 100 gems for her 100th day t-shirt for the 100th day of school. Safa had an extra bounce in her step today. She was prepared and ready for all of the fun activities and treats during the 100th day of school. Mama noticed Safa's excitement and kissed her forehead as she brushed her hair. Oh, Safa, your 3rd grade class is so fun. Your teacher has a lot of interesting things planned for today. Safa nodded her head. Mama, I'm ready to go. Can we leave now? Both Mama and Safa entered the car reciting their traveling dua. سبحان الذي سخر لنا هذا وما كنا له مقرنين وإنا إلى ربنا لمنقلبون. After a short car ride, they arrived to school. Mama unlocked the door. Have a great day and enjoy reciting your poem today. Mama watched as Safa waved back and smiled. Safa straightened out her 100th day school t-shirt. Safa smoothed out the bottom of her t-shirt, tilting a few of the pink gems to make them look just right. She skipped into the building, excited for her day. Safa entered her busy, noisy classroom. The sight of her classmates all dressed up made her heart flutter. She took her time to observe what others were wearing. Some students dressed up as grandparents with a cane, with white hair, big glasses, and funny colors in their outfit. Safa thought that this tradition of her school was the silliest, dressing up as 100 years old on the 100th day of school. Others did what Safa did and made their own 100th day t-shirt. Her friend Alina had 100 polka dots on her t-shirt. Haris had 100 dinosaur stickers neatly arranged on the front and back of his t-shirt. Safa observed all her classmates and could feel their excitement in the room. She looked around to see if anyone brought posters or projects. Just as she wondered that, Alina, her friend, held out a large jar with colorful gummy candy. She whispered, "These are halal. My mom got these last month from Jordan. Guess how many there are inside?" Safa smiled. "Of course 100. Safa walked to her table with her friend when she noticed a girl standing at the teacher's table, a new face. She stared at her shoes, holding her hands. This new girl was a new student. The teacher rubbed her back and smiled at her warmly. Mrs. Roberts nudged this new student forward. It seemed like Safa's class was about to welcome a brand new student. Huh? A new student in the middle of the year? And that too on the 100th day of school? Safa could not understand. It was almost like her friend Alina could also hear her thoughts because she whispered to Safa, Oh, wow, I think our third grade class has a new student. Look, Safa, she didn't even know that it was the 100th day of school. She's wearing the school uniform. I would hate to start a new school when it's the 100th day of school. I bet she's gonna feel left out and awkward. Safa nodded, noticing how the new student did not look up. She inched her way at a turtle's pace, so slowly. Mrs. Roberts pulled the chair and asked her to join Sammy's table. Sammy stared at the new student without even saying hi, without even smiling. Safa felt disappointed in her classmate. She turned to her friend. Ugh, Sammy didn't even greet her or welcome her. I wish she would have at least said hi to her. Alina shrugged her shoulders and took out her writing journal. Mrs. Roberts rang the class bell gently and announced, "Good morning, class. Can I have your attention, please? I have a few announcements to make. First of all, I absolutely love everyone's participation in our 100th day school event. Today, we are going to parade around the cafeteria and walk in a neat line, waving to all the admin and staff who will be cheering and clapping for our parade. If you brought a poster or a project, be sure to keep it at your desk so you can carry that during our parade. Another announcement I have is about a new addition to our class. Please welcome our new student, Layla." Layla sunk into her chair, sliding lower. Safa saw her shoulders droop. Her head was barely perked up to even look at the class. Safa repeated her name to Alina. Layla. I wonder if she's Muslim like us. What do you think, Alina? Safa asked. Yeah, maybe, she said with hope in her voice. Mrs. Roberts clapped her hands together in excitement. All right, well, since it's the 100th day of school, we will be reciting our 100-word poem to second grade. We will be going to the second grade class down the hall. You all are third graders, so let's be sure to show them how older kids are able to get in line, how older kids are able to follow directions, and how older kids present with our strong voices. Please line up when I call your table numbers so we can visit our friends for this special presentation of our 100-day poem. Mrs. Roberts called each table calmly. The students quietly stood up, pushed in their chairs, and lined up one behind the other. Safa waited in line patiently. She looked behind her to see the new student, Layla, at the end of the line. Layla looked at her uniform. She tugged at her shirt. She looked sad standing in line with the rest of the class who was wearing special 100-day things. Safa whispered to her friend Alina, "Layla won't know any of the words of our 100-day poem. What will she say when it's her turn?" Alina raised her eyebrows in surprise. She hadn't even thought of that. Safa was feeling concerned for the new student. Safa was feeling nervous too. She actually wasn't nervous about her own presentation, but instead, she was nervous thinking about how Layla would handle the fact that she doesn't even have a part to recite in this poem. Safa stood in line, her mind distracted. She wondered how she would feel if she was the new student at a brand new school on the 100th day of school. Safa peered behind her once more to look at Layla. Layla looked at Safa and gave her a half smile, then quickly looked away. Mrs. Roberts raised one hand to signal everyone to quiet down. Safa's third grade class quietly followed their teacher and entered a second grade classroom. Mrs. Brady waved to the third grade class. "Good morning. We are ready. We're ready with our listening ears for the third graders to recite their 100-word poem." Mrs. Roberts asked the class to stand up tall and in the correct order. Everyone had a speaking part, so they had to stand according to their table order. Mrs. Roberts cleared her throat. Our 100-word poem is about friendship. It's an adaptation from Robert Frost's poem called A Time to Talk. The students read their part one by one. Layla was standing at the end of the row. Mrs. Roberts went over to Layla and whispered something. When it was Layla's turn, all that she said was, "The end." Everyone clapped, and immediately Safa felt relieved that at least Layla had a part. She was also included in this activity thanks to her teacher. The second grade teacher, Mrs. Brady, stood up from her seat and exclaimed, "Oh, that was so wonderful! I wish I could hear it one more time." Mrs. Roberts was struck with an idea. She winked at Layla and walked over to her. Mrs. Roberts unfolded a sheet of paper and handed it to the new student, Layla. "Would you like to read the entire poem by yourself, Layla?" Layla looked up to Mrs. Roberts and nodded with enthusiasm. Layla carefully took the sheet of paper and recited the whole thing by herself. A time to talk. When a friend calls along the road, I stop my work, set down my load. No task so great, no toil so tight, that I can't pause beneath the light. His voice is warm, his smile is true, a simple moment, yet I knew that work will wait, but time won't stay. A friend is worth the lost delay. I walk to meet him, hands ungloved, for friendship grows when it is loved. No field too vast, no path too wide, when friends stand talking side by side. Layla looked at Safa after reading her poem and smiled. It was as if Layla was trying to tell Safa that she would like to be friends. Mrs. Brady clapped and exclaimed, "Bravo! I loved that adaptation. You did a wonderful job reciting the poem. Mrs. Roberts told me that we would have a new student, but, sweetie, you must forgive me. I only made enough 100-day hats for the third graders. I didn't know that your class was going to have a new student today. I didn't realize that you were joining today. I'm actually short of one hat." Safa stepped out of line and shot her hand in the air. "Oh, she can have my 100-day hat. I have a 100-day t-shirt, so I don't mind." Mrs. Brady hugged Safa. "Wow, that's so generous of you. All right, looks like you'll have no worries making friends in this class. They're a nice bunch." Safa blushed. She looked to Layla and gave her a thumbs up. The day passed so quickly. Safa enjoyed every minute of it. Her and Layla and Alina even sat together at lunch. The teachers handed out a little goodie bag for each student to take home as a 100th day of school gift. When Safa's mom picked her up from school, she noticed a huge smile on Safa's face. "Assalamu alaikum, Mama. Guess what happened today? We have a new student named Layla, and she's Muslim." Safa went on to sharing her day with her mom. Mama listened carefully, nodding and smiling throughout the story. Safa continued, "Mama, if it was me, and for some reason if I had to change schools and start as a new student in a new school in the middle of the year, then I would want someone to include me and be nice to me." Mama nodded in agreement. "You know, Safa, you followed such an important hadith today about being a true believer. The Prophet ﷺ said, 'None of you truly believes until you love for your fellow Muslim, which you love for yourself.'" Mama held Safa's hand and kissed it. "I am so proud of you. You showed kindness, Safa. May Allah always keep your heart soft and pure. Ameen." Safa smiled. She looked out the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of her new friend, Layla. Thank you for listening to Once Upon a Crescent. If you're enjoying these stories and would like to hear more, be sure to unlock 14 episodes on my Patreon page. That's over 1 hour of audio content. The link to this is in my description box. If you or your child loves to read, then please be sure to check out my brand new book titled, What Do You Do When You Don't Feel Like You? Be sure to leave a review as well. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.